Mr. Sorry, I missed your name. Let's keep the names. Let's go to why we're here. Mr. Bello is ready to tell us what we know. And you know as it runs, he will speak for like 10 or 15 minutes, after which I'm sure by the time he finishes his exposition, you will not have anything to say. But just in case you have something to say, just in case you have everything to say, we give two slots to ask questions. On this note, my Oga, I would like to invite you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Give a round of applause as he moves to the podium.
Thank you very much. Let me start by honoring my dear brother, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Ononuga. I have other brothers here, Mr. Sunday Dari and Mr. Rahman. And my colleagues who came with me, and also my distinguished brothers too. Just let me skip that. Gentlemen of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm here to just give us a briefing on what we have done in FCCPC in the last 2 years or so. So I'm going to start just with a brief remark. Let me start by introduction on what FCCPC is all about. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission is Nigeria's primary competition and consumer protection regulator. Established under the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act of 2018, the Commission is empowered to regulate market conduct, eliminate anti-competitive practices, and protect consumers from unfair, unreasonable, and unjust treatment. The Commission recognizes that inflation is driven largely by complex macroeconomic factors. However, unchecked exploitative pricing, deceptive practices, and supply manipulation can worsen consumer hardship and erode confidence in the marketplace. It is important to emphasize at the outset that the FCCPC does not control prices. Nigeria operates a free market economy and profit-making is legitimate. However, where market conduct crosses into the territory of exploitation or unfair practices, the Commission is empowered to intervene. In such cases, the FCCPC acts against conduct that artificially drives inflationary pressure, including exploitative pricing, deceptive repackaging, supply manipulation, and artificial scarcity, using the enforcement powers provided under the FCCPA Act. Recent inflation trends in Nigeria. Nigeria's inflation rate has shown clearly signs of moderation in recent months, following a prolonged period of elevated prices pressures. Data released by the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the headline inflation, which rose significantly through 2024 and peaked about 34% in 2025, has come down significantly to about 15%. This development reflects a number of macroeconomic adjustments, including relative stability in foreign exchange conditions, improved supply in certain consumer goods markets, and evolving energy price dynamics. While inflation was once a major challenge affecting households and businesses, the emerging trend suggests that coordinated fiscal, monetary, and regulatory pressure are beginning to stabilize the situation across some sectors of the economy. Without a doubt, this positive signal is attributable to the bold reforms initiated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In this environment, market oversight institutions play an important complementary role. The FCCPC's mandate is not to control prices, but to ensure that markets remain competitive, transparent, and free from manipulation. Through market surveillance, investigation, and anti-competitive conduct, oversight of pricing behavior in critical consumer sectors, and collaboration with other regulators, the Commission helps to strengthen market discipline. These interventions help to ensure that improvements in macroeconomic conditions translate into meaningful relief for consumers, and a more predictable operating environment for businesses. Our mandate. In addressing inflation-related market conduct, the Commission relies on several provisions of the FCCPA Act of 2018. Section 17E and S empower the Commission to carry out investigations and inquiries necessary to protect consumers and address market abuse. Section 59, subsection 2, prohibits agreements that fix prices, divide markets, or restrict supply. Section 72, subsection 2A, prohibits dominant firms from charging excessive prices to the detriment of consumers. Section 127, subsection 1A, prohibits the offering or marketing of goods and services at prices or on terms that are manifestly unfair, unreasonable, or unjust. While Section 148, subsection 2, empowers the Commission to initiate investigation based on credible intelligence, even where no formal complaint has been lodged. FCCP's strategic role in the economy. Beyond enforcement, the FCC plays a broader role in strengthening the Nigerian economy. Through market surveillance, merger regulation, consumer redress, promotion of competition, and the prohibition of restrictive practices, the Commission supports Nigeria's economic transformation in several ways. For instance, dismantling of barriers to entry and encouraging fair competition, strengthening investor confidence through predictable regulation, discouraging market manipulation that contributes to price instability, protecting consumer purchasing power and welfare, supporting innovation and inclusive economic growth. These functions collectively contribute to the integrity and resilience of Nigeria's economic system. That said, gentlemen of the press, let me now proceed to our activities in the area of enforcement and investigations. In pursuit of this mandate, the Commission is currently undertaking several enforcement and investigative actions, addressing price-related abuses across multiple sectors of the economy. As a matter of fact, following weeks of discrete investigations, we had cause to seal off some warehouses in Kano in November 2025 for stocking and selling fabrics that fell short of the measurements of the label. Sanctions were imposed on the violators, and they were made to undergo a remedial process, including a given firm undertaking never to engage in such unethical practices again. In championing the cause of Nigerian consumers, the Commission assisted in recovering over 10 billion between January and October of 2025 alone, by way of helping consumers get refunds through dispute resolutions, particularly in the financial sector and retail markets. We receive a lot of complaints. Many of them, they don't get to the public. These are complaints from ordinary people and so on. And when we do our investigation and we call the people concerned and so on, at the end of the day, through our remedial measures, they are able to refund the money to most of those people, including those who even bought houses that were not provided. Daily, through our fully functional state offices and zonal commands, number 15 spread across the country, the Commission is able to assist Nigerian consumers get justice quickly when in distress, instead of going to the court, which often takes time. They include aspiring homeowners who paid estate developers but didn't get his property paid for or on the agreed date and were made to wait sometimes for years. They also include energy consumers asked to pay for services not rendered or whose rights were being denied one way or the other. In fact, we had cause to seal off the administrative headquarters of an electricity distribution company in Lagos for days recently for violating the rights of some of their consumers until they did the right thing. Under our watch since July 2024, the Commission has also recorded notable judicial victories in matters involving anti-competitive practices and violations of consumer protection rules. This includes, first, the MTN case. In February 2025, the Lagos Federal High Court affirmed the Commission's authority to regulate competition and consumer protection in Nigeria. That singular judgment solidified the Commission's power as the lead regulator across all sectors in Nigeria. The Meta and WhatsApp case. In April 2025, the Competition and Consumer Protection Tribunal ruled in favor of the FCCPC in the appeal filed by Meta Platforms Incorporated and WhatsApp Incorporated. The tribunal upheld the Commission's decision, including the imposition of $220 million administrative penalty and $35,000 investigation cost. Meta and WhatsApp have since filed a notice of appeal As it stands today, we are committed to pursue the matter to its logical conclusion. Then there's a case of bottling company. In April 2025, the FCCPC secured a favorable judgment against the popular bottling company over the misleading packaging of its products. At the moment, the Commission is undertaking a number of investigations. They include exploitative pricing of baby formula and pharmaceuticals. Following credible intelligence and consumer complaints, the Commission initiated surveillance within the fast-moving consumer goods sector, particularly baby formula and essential medicines for malaria, hypertension, and diabetes. Comparative pricing analysis revealed disparities of up to 80 to 100% without evidence of corresponding cost increases along the supply chain. Summons and requests for information have therefore been issued to pharmacies, supermarkets, and distributors as part of an ongoing investigation into pricing integrity and cost justification. Review of cement price. The Commission has taken note of recent movements in cement prices across several parts of Nigeria. Given the importance of cement to housing, infrastructure, and national development, price movements in this sector have significant implications for construction costs and economic activity. The FCCPC has therefore commenced a review of developments in the cement market, examining industry structure, production dynamics, cost drivers, and pricing behavior. The Commission will work with relevant agencies and industry stakeholders to determine whether the observed increases reflect legitimate cost pressures, supply constraints, or other market conditions that require regulatory attention. But be rest assured that the Commission is determined to get to the root of the matter to ensure consumers are not cheated or taken advantage of. Rebagging and mislabeled rice. FCCPC investigation have also uncovered instances where distributors rebag lower grade rice into premium branded sacks and sell them at inflated prices. This conduct violates Section 127, subsection 2C of the FCCPC Act, which prohibits misleading representation regarding product origin, quality, and value. Market surveillance operations have been conducted across multiple states as part of ongoing evidence gathering. Hidden price changes at checkout. Commission has also identified deceptive dual pricing practices in several retail outlets, where share prices differ from checkout prices without disclosure. This violates Section 127, subsection 2D of the FCCPA regarding failure to disclose material pricing information. Several stores in Abuja and Lagos have been sealed and issued compliance notices and required to undertake collective actions. Airline ticket pricing. The FCCPC has also undertaken a review of pricing practices in Nigeria's domestic aviation sector, following widespread consumer complaints regarding sharp ticket price spikes during the peak travel periods, particularly at the last Christmas. An interim report released 2 weeks ago by the Commission indicates that fares during the December 25 festive travel period were significantly higher than those observed in the post-peak January 2026 period, despite relative stability in fuel prices, regulatory charges, and foreign exchange conditions at that time. At that time, there was stability, there was no foreign exchange fluctuation, the inflation was down, so there was no ground for unnecessary price inflation by the airline operators. On certain routes, the difference between peak and post-peak fares reached approximately between 4,000 and 5,000 and 650,000 per fare or per ticket. The report also observed clustering of fares across several airlines on high-density routes or high-density routes during periods of reduced seat availability. While seasonal demand pressures and operational constraints may influence pricing during peak periods, these factors remain under review as part of the Commission's ongoing investigation. The interim report highlights the possible relevance of sections 59, 72, 107, 124, and 127 of the FCCPC Act, which address anti-competitive agreements, abuse of dominance, price fixing, conspiracy, and unfair pricing practices. Further structural analysis is ongoing, and the Commission will determine any necessary regulatory or enforcement actions upon completion of the review. Consumer rights must be respected as guaranteed by provisions of the Act. For those who have been taken undue advantage of by the airlines through exploitative pricing during the last Yuletide season, one of the options of redress the Commission is looking at is mandating them to make refund to travelers during the period under review and in line with the provisions of the Acts. As was earlier announced, the Commission will also be looking at the pricing practices of foreign airlines operating routes through Nigeria to ensure that consumers are not being cheated through exploitative pricing. At this juncture, gentlemen of the press, let me stress that the Commission style is not to focus on hunting violators. Rather, we take proactive steps to prevent violations. We do this through a series of advocacy and enlightenment engagements, as well as collaborating with other regulatory authorities. To ensure a broad-based impact, FCCPC collaborates with sector regulators. Such partnerships were formalized through the signing of MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with NAFDAC, SON, NCC, NERC, and a host of other regulators under Section 105 of the FCCPC Act, which authorizes the Commission to act jointly with other agencies to enforce consumer and competition enactments in certain circumstances. For instance, following the spike in food prices in 2024, we embarked on stakeholder engagements across the country. Our message was targeted against exploitative pricing. We utilized the mass media, including television and radio jingles, to spread the message. To promote pricing transparency and discourage exploitative behavior, we immediately engaged farmers, transporters, traders, and market leaders across the country as part of a broader advocacy against abusive practices like price fixing, barriers to entry by market associations, excessive market levy, produce hoarding, and smuggling of grains to create artificial scarcity, arbitrary price increases, market cartels. We have cause to believe that our message was well received and has played a role in helping to persuade those engaged in price fixing in the food market to have a return. By the latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics, food inflation, for instance, has come down from 30% in 2024 to around 15% today. For instance, prices of staple food have come down, maybe minus Iraq, except for the current US-Iran war. A bag of rice which sold for about 95,000 in 2024 now goes for 53,000. The average price of brown beans fell from 2,798 per kilo in 2024 to 1,760 in 2025 and has further declined to 1,400 this year. Similarly, the price of white garri dropped from 1,198 per kilogram in 2024 to 846 in 2025 and continued to decline in 2026 to 750 per kilogram. Also, the average price of tomatoes decreased from 1,465 per kilogram in 2024 to 1,269 in 2025 and further to 1,000 in 2026. To sustain the gains of resource stability in the food market, the Commission set up Joint Market Monitoring Task Force in collaboration with the leaders of our markets. The goal is to sensitize traders on their obligations, rather than real-time intelligence, and take necessary action against obnoxious practices in the marketplace. The Commission has inaugurated a pilot phase in Abuja with a plan to escalate it to markets across the country in the coming weeks. In the beverage sector, the Commission is also engaging stakeholders. Over 50 representatives of major food and beverage manufacturers in the country were recently hosted by the Commission in a roundtable compliance meeting aimed at promoting wholesome industry practices. The FCCPC Act compliance ambassadors were established among participants to promote consumer choice and market fairness. Gentlemen of the press, I cannot end this report without mentioning the challenges we face in the digital lending sector. With the rapid advance in technology, we are witnessing an explosion in the digital lending markets. Unfortunately, this has brought its own issues, including unethical practices by the lenders, as well as reported cases of irresponsibility by the borrowers. But let me assure you that the Commission continues to lead a coordinated multi-agency enforcement initiative to sanitize the rapidly evolving segment of the financial market. Therefore, working in collaboration with agencies such as the Central Bank of Nigeria, NITDA, ICPC, and global intermediaries like Google, the FCCPC has established a limited interim regulatory framework that has greatly sanitized the sector and relatively protected consumers from abusive conduct, including harassment, data breaches, and opaque terms. In specific terms, to address these challenges, a number of measures have been put in place. This includes a list of credible loan apps has been approved and published by FCCPC for consumer awareness and intermediary enforcement. 46 non-compliant digital lending platforms have been delisted. Several others have been placed on regulatory watch list pending further compliance review. Enforcement efforts continue to expand, use to detect and disrupt emerging violators. Beyond consumer protection, this initiative also supports smaller compliant fintech lenders by preventing market foreclosure and encouraging fair competition in the digital credit ecosystem. That said, gentlemen of the press, let me now briefly address the issue of regional integration in our national interest. It must be noted that across the African continent, that competition regulators are being tested by shifting market dynamics, particularly the dominance of digital platforms, cross-border transactions, and the emergence of new, often unregulated business models. In Nigeria, the FCCPC moves swiftly and innovatively to respond to these dynamics. One emerging issue is the ECOWAS Regional Mergers and Acquisition Initiative, which seeks to centralize certain merger and competition oversight functions across member states. While regional cooperation is commendable and potentially beneficial, FCCPC is, however, of the view that implementation must not come at the expense of Nigeria's national interest. Matters involving margin, decisions, and market control, scale and nuance of the Nigerian market. We continue. FCCPC's role in scrutinizing cross-border transactions will remain grounded in the FCCPC Act, ensuring that Nigeria is not unduly bound. Also, on the issue of subnational partnerships, it bears stating that different judicial rulings reaffirm preeminence of FCCPC as the chief enforcer of fair markets and consumer protection. However, legal powers without coherence across the country or without the involvement of states and local governments face the risk of futility or inefficiency. It is important to recognize that consumer protection issues are on concurrent legislative lists. They are on concurrent legislative lists, requiring collaboration between federal and sub-national governments. Most of consumer complaints, especially those related to food, drugs, housing, and related services, arise mostly at the community level and often carry cultural or religious dimensions that are best addressed locally. A sustainable approach, therefore, demands that state governments enact new consumer protection laws or update existing ones to reflect current realities in trade, pricing, product safety, and consumer rights. In this regard, we respectively request all our state governors to prioritize consumer protection and market regulation within their jurisdictions. The FCCPC is willing to and ready to support this process by providing technical assistance and training. We believe that strengthening state-level frameworks is critical to fostering culture of consumer justice nationwide. I conclude. Gentlemen of the press, let me reassure you that the FCCPC remains resolute in its mission to promote fair markets, protect consumer welfare, and support the broader economic goals of the Renew Hope agenda of our President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We fully recognize that market abuse is a multifaceted challenge, but it's also one that can and must be tackled through smart, strategic, and coordinated regulation. Enforcement is necessary, but sustainable impact requires partnership, especially with state governments, which are indispensable to effective nationwide consumer protection. The FCCPC stands ready to work with state actors and other stakeholders that no part of this country is left behind in the fight against exploitation, market manipulation, or consumer abuse. With the continued support of you members of the fourth estate of the realm, we can deepen market discipline, restore trust in our economic systems, and deliver real value to the Nigerian people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Chairman. In his conclusion, he said, gentlemen of the press, I think I heard somebody say pen pusher one time like that. Who was that? Please discountenance that, delete. Of course, we have listened to him, as I said. It's just for us to go home, file your reports. There's nothing else to add. But we are gender friendly since there's no female on this side of the divide. We'll allow two ladies to just ask questions. I said on this side of the divide. Two ladies, Adesuwan 1, Vaughn 2. Can we extend it to the guys too? Okay. AIT 3. Channels 4. Yes, channels 4. Wait for the mic. Okay. So I will take this first batch. Hopefully there will not be any other questions.
Thank you very much, sir. And given that it is International Women's Month, that's very considerate of you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir, for the work you do. Securing 10 billion naira within 6 months in 2025 is huge. But for many Nigerians, they still feel like they are unprotected, and they feel when something happens to them, they're in the hands of God, or they just leave it to fate. Why do you think that is so? And also, I was curious to find out, because your mandate cuts across a lot of sectors in the Nigerian economy, which sector is the most culprit to abuse Nigerian consumers from the work you have done so far? Thank you very much. Adesuwa for Rise News.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Temitope Mustafa, and I report for Voice of Nigeria. Obviously, the job before the FCCPC is enormous, and it is beyond its social media platforms. I want to ask a question about the physical presence to the grassroots, speaking about protecting Nigerian consumers. What are we really doing in protecting, in scrutinizing the informal market?
Hello? No, I was actually, yes, I think Adeswa picked up on the question I want to ask, but I'll just basically bring it from another angle. In terms of I would like to understand how, if you look at the complaints you get, can you give us a number of how much complaints you get from Nigerians? If you can. I would have wanted to, but she touched on the issue of getting across to you as regards the number of complaints we have in the country. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, sir. My name is Yemi Adebayo from AIT. My colleagues, they've raised a number of issues, but I'm just concerned about the telecoms and the banking charges. A lot of Nigerians have complained that there are excessive charges from these various telecoms and banking agencies. What are you doing to address some of these issues? Thank you very much.
You can go ahead and take the first batch, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. You asked about that we made 10 billion we are able to recover 10 billion in 2025. Cumulatively, we could have recorded more than 10 billion, because this survey was done around October last year. So there could be an update. I'm sure by now we'll have more updates onto that. And mostly, let me tell you what normally happens. There are a lot of transactions that go on that you see from ordinary people even buying in the market, like even buying yam and things like that, and even busy buying clothes alone. Informal markets that people make large complaints that people don't get to know. In fact, thousands of such complaints we receive on a daily basis. And when you get them, normally either you petition, some people do it by text, or through WhatsApp and several other platforms. And we're also online, so you can reach us online and so on. Some even do formal writing, formal complaints. So when we receive those, our investigators will start the process. Then, apart from assessing the veracity of that what you are filing, they will now contact the person which you are reporting against. We invite them. Sometimes if they fail, they can issue summons on them because you are bound. Once a complaint has been lodged against you, you are bound to respond. And if you don't respond, we have other measures of reaching out to you and so on. And through that process, when they come and so on, we are able to either, sometimes we mediate. And if one party is trying to be, one person is trying to be recalcitrant, we do the necessary things and so on to make sure that they comply immediately. Most of the times, they either compel them to refund the money back to the person who has lodged the complaint, or you replace the goods with that person. I can even give you an example of even somebody who purchased a car from someone, and it's called a brand new car. Let me even tell you, I think it's what's it, that Jeep. Range Rover, sorry. It was a Range Rover. Person purchased a Range Rover. It was a brand new Range Rover. And then discovered that this Range Rover, after about 6 months, it was malfunctioning one way or the other, and so on. So he called the person who supplied the Range Rover. They took it back, they did the repairs, and so on. After collecting, the problem was still there again. So, and it became so problematic that the person now demanded that it's either he's provided a new Range Rover, or you will have to go and you will have to go and lodge a complaint against them and so on. They took the Range Rover again for third repair. The person still did not satisfy the person. So they now, when they invited them, they now decided to say, okay, we will refund, either we refund the money you paid for the Range Rover at that time, which was almost about 2 years before the complaints, or we give you another Range Rover. But the person insisted that he must collect the Range Rover of the current edition of Range Rover. So, in the process, when we invited them, they said, well, what they can do is that they offer 3 options. It's either they give you the new one, or we repair again, or we give you that version of the Range Rover you bought. The person insisted, I must collect it. So we now said, look, we cannot compel these people to give you the current Range Rover. So we can only give you that edition you bought. It's either you accept that or not. So that was how that one was decided. So there are various cases like that and so on. And let me come to the issue of where we receive favorable complaint, mostly on energy. Energy, people complain about electricity supply and so on, or people know. That's where you see most complaints about. And that led to, we took a recent action in Lagos against a disco. So these are some of the areas we receive a lot of complaints. Also fintech. You know, people do a lot of transactions online and so on and so on. Most of them, they are either given unfair terms. Somebody has borrowed money, and then you discover that when you ask to pay back and so on, the interest rate is outrageous and so on. Most of them we have interrogated, most of them we have intervened, and then I'm able to resolve as many as possible. Most of them you don't get to hear them, and we receive them on a daily basis. So most of these complaints. So in the formal markets, that's where the complaints come from mostly. You know, the allergy are selling yam, selling tuber. So how many will you take to the media? When they lodge complaint and so on. They have an association. Sometimes they lodge complaint to their association. They don't come directly. Most of the time they lead the complaint. Even customers too, they come. And what we have done is to have regular meetings with most of these associations that are within our vicinity, either in Abuja here or sometimes in Lagos. We mandate our offices. Our offices in the states, let's say in Yoyo, in Castina, or even in Niger State and so on, in case we have issues, to address those issues and so on, because we have able hands in most of these states who easily address basic issues. But you know, in cosmopolitan cities like Lagos, Abuja, places like Ibadan, Kaduna, and so on, the level of complaints you receive are bordered on fintech, energy, and telecoms mostly, and banks as well. We also receive a lot of complaints from banks and so on. Although we have issue with the BOFIA, is BOFIA Act are trying to remove our power from inquiring into banks. How can a bank customer is a customer, is a consumer, whether you like it or not? So, and I don't see any reason why it should be an exclusive reserve of banks to receive, to deal with the customer and also receive their complaints and so on. How many people have access to central bank? How many people have access to the banks to lodge complaints? It is only the government agencies they can lodge their complaints on. And that is why we feel that we are constantly battling that act, which is before the National Assembly, and we are praying that members of the National Assembly will see reason with us on why that provisions that gives the FCCPC the power to receive complaints from them should be preserved for the interest of Nigerian consumers in the long run. So what are we doing to provide the informal market? The informal market is basically to work through the associations and also through to educate them more, hold regular meetings with them, through informal communication as well. We do informal communication through community engagements and joint monitoring and so on. So, because we cannot use sophisticated media for the informal markets as much as possible. So, regular engagements is very critical. And then the use of the radio, particularly in the second section of the country. There are some sections of the country that you cannot even use social media. It's not effective to reach them. Certain parts of the country they are so important that you can only get to them by radio. Communication is by the radio. Radio is the most effective way of reaching them. So you must segment how you reach or how the consumers engage you, or how you engage them, and so. So we try to, as much as possible, to segment the medium which we use for them. So it's a motivated approach to receiving complaints and so on, which we are constantly improving and so on. Numbers of complaints we get annually. Mr. Ondaje, you are the one in charge of how many complaints you received the last time, so that you can give receive a lot of complaints.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, EVC. With your kind permission, I proceed to say that the last time we came up with our data reporting the complaints received between and also resolved between March and August of 2025, at the time, we had resolved over 9,000 complaints. And that was what amounted to the 10 billion naira recoveries that we made. But I think it is important that I say this because one of the questions that was asked bordered on our reach, the kind of complaint, and then whether Nigerian consumers are complaining enough. I like to say that in the commission, we are able to tell that Nigerians, I want to say, with all due respect, sometimes we grumble more than we complain. And I will give what we mean by that in the commission. In fact, we have a flyer in the commission that says, don't grumble, complain. Because if, for instance, now, you suffer maybe from some power issues and you sit in front of your wife in the living room to say, God punish NEPA, as we are wont to say most of the time in our local parlance, you haven't complained. You haven't channeled your grievances to the constituted authority. And that is what we do most of the time. Sometimes we have issues when even our friends and relations call us to say, look, I suffered this problem with a particular undertaking. And we say, okay, lodge your complaint. Just like the EVC said, we have several channels. We have several channels created, and then we have an automated system, complaints.fccpc.gov.ng. All you need to do, if someone who is a computer, or rather, who uses your smartphone, you type that into your browser, and you're able to immediately access that interactive platform where You will be asked your details you provide, and then you'll be asked the kind of complaint you have, and you lodge it. But when friends and relations even come to you and you say, just take this simple step, not many of them would come back with a complaint. Meanwhile, you'll be waiting, because as soon as you complain, it generates a code. There's an autoresponder. It generates a code for your complaint and sends to you. Well, you would wait forever. A lot of times, these things don't come. And then on the issue of informal market, I think just to buttress what the EVC said, the response he gave, you see, that's one area we have a lot of challenge if you look at it. When there are market associations, most of the time, it is not because they want to discuss the welfare of the consumer that they are serving. It is usually how to fix the prices for their products. It is so bad that a farmer would come from the village with his produce, and he tries to drop it in a particular section of the market to sell. And they say, look, except you register with our association, you cannot sell this product. And just like EVC said, so that's one of the areas we're looking at. That's one way we are handling the informal sector. What we're doing is to discourage them, because we don't want to begin to start with prohibition. We'll, for now, engaging them. A lot of times our consumer and business education department in one market or the other, trying to sensitize them to some of these things, because it's a criminal offense to fix price. So these are some of the things we're doing in a nutshell. Thank you, Mr. Vice.
Sorry, is the guy that asked, Channel said you only spoke about the ones you resolved. You didn't tell us the figure.
No, that was for the 10 billion. We see, you know, there are many platforms for our complaints. For instance, now, as we are saying, you have, I've told you several means of complaints. When it comes, it's the end of the year. When we do our annual report at the end of the year, we collate them. Sometimes it could be, some of them can be as much as over 25,000 and so. You have to take the one for the radio, you have to take the one through informal means, you have to go through the fintech and several other things that we do. So there are many platforms. So we aggregate them towards the end of the year and summarize them and so on. We normally have an annual report at the end of the year where we summarize all the complaints in Nigeria, and categorize them by sectors, informal, through informal means, and through formal means, and several others like that. So those are the means.
So the second batch, the SSA on Media and Publicity wants to ask when he should be telling us. He wants to ask a question. Okay, your question will come last. John Bosco, Vanguard, NTA, and the SSA.
Yes, so my name is John Bosco Abakuru. I write for Vanguard. Yes. So I want to find out, do you have the power to prosecute the people that exploit Nigerians? Do you have the power to prosecute? And if you do, how many of the offenders have you prosecuted? The airliners that took advantage of Nigerians to exploit them during Christmas time, how many of them are you investigating? How long will the investigation last? How long are you going to publish the names of those airlines that, we are exploiting consumers? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sirs. My name is Musbaud and Wahab. I work with NTA. EVC, sir, you concluded your presentation by promising that your commission will continue to promote fair markets. And as we know right now, the current price for a call per minute is around 13 naira. As a well-placed man, 13 naira per minute. Calls, phone call.
Okay.
With your assignment, sir, I know right now you make a lot of calls, just like my essays and SSAs. With your assignment, you need to make a lot of calls. What do you think, or how would you feel if MTN says for making 2 much calls, you have to pay 150 naira per minute instead of 13 naira? I'm asking this question against the background of what one agency is doing at the moment, coming up with a policy of ban A, ban B, ban C. We have people on band A paying high or multiple of what band C or band B will be paying. How are you protecting Nigerians in this light? Or are you incapacitated to do that?
Okay, sir, on issues of cement price, I think a major complaint you see from a lot of Nigerians on social media, even at personal level, is the seemingly high cost of cement. It's about 11,000 naira per bag now. And Agora policy by Mr. Wasiri Adio-led organization did a report about last month, or I know early this year, if not exactly last month, on too much profit taking by the cement producers. More than 90% of all their cost, especially their raw materials, is sourced locally, or sourced locally. And if you look at the last financial report of both Dangote Cement, Bua, these are companies that declared over 1 trillion profit before tax, or maybe after tax, I'm not sure, but they declare over 1 trillion naira profit. And 90% of their raw materials are sourced locally. So that means the dollar component is limited or minimal. And if they say the argument has always been that some of their equipment are sourced in dollar, but they don't buy this equipment every day. So the things they consume every day are the raw materials that are sourced locally. So the argument by Agora policy is that they can actually, if they are declaring over 1 trillion naira profit in a fiscal year, that means they are overcharging consumers with the unit cost of their of cement. So what are you doing, or your agency or commission doing in this regard?
Let me begin from the last question on cement. You know, like I said in my opening statement, we are already investigating the cement prices across the federation. And I don't want to preempt that investigation. So I won't be able to say much on that now because the investigation is going on. I got that report from Mr. Wasiri Adio, full report, and we are ready. In fact, that report is very useful to us, which we are doing. We have set up an investigative team already. They are going around at the moment and so on. And I'm sure by the time we come out with our full report, it will be published and everybody will see. And whatever measures that is necessary for us to take, we will take them. But I don't want to discuss much on it. So not that we preempt preempt the investigation. Yeah. You said then the second to last question. It has to do with the calls, telephone calls, the cost of this. You know, we normally collaborate with the Nigeria Communication Commission on this fact because it's the main regulator of the communication industry in Nigeria. Let me give you one instance. Last year, when they were going to increase the rate of the telecoms were charging, you know, it was through we have an MOU with them. They consulted us. So we sat down together. The telecom companies were going to increase by 100%. We persuaded through that negotiation, that no, you cannot, because given the inflation rate at that time. So it was logical for them there was no way we could stop them from increasing their prices at that time, or increase their rates, increase their rates at that time. So we do thorough engagements with the NCC and some of the telephone companies and so on. We're able to manage to help them to come down to 50%. What they initially proposed was 100% of the rates. So it's a continuous engagement. Well, okay. Let's give it out to Mr. Ondagi.
Yes, thank you very much. Excuse me, please. Sorry, there is a desk on electricity in the commission, which I actually superintend. So the issue of band A, band B are things we tackle from time to time. First of all, I'd like to say that, like the EVC indicated in his address, we are not a price control agency. But what we try to do is to ensure that consumers are not exploited, either by way of pricing of products or services. We in the electricity sector, that is where we have most of the challenges that consumers contend with in this country. That is one sector that is still trying to grapple with things like metering, knowing the accurate consumption of a consumer. We still have some good number of consumers who are in estimated billing. So one of the things that the electricity sector had continued to complain about is that their tariffs are not reflective of their cost. And that is why even government continues to give them some kind of support. So on the issue of band A, what they elected on their own to do is to say, okay, look, every Nigerian consumer yearns to have power round the clock, at least 24/7 if possible, and if not so, for the best part of every day, let there be supply. And because they had complained that, look, we don't recover our costs, and the range at which they have put band A today is what they say is the tariff rate at which they can recover their costs. And so one of the things they elected to do was to say, okay, look, if a man is on band A, for the best part of the day, at least 20 hours in a day, 20 hours in a day would ensure the guy has supply. And NEC, who is their primary regulator, agreed with them on that. So if your feeder is ascertained to be working optimally, your feeder before your transformer, if your feeder is ascertained to be working optimally, they make an application to NEC, and NEC would look at all of this and approve whether they can put you on band A. The challenge we are having, however, is that consumers, a number of consumers too will tell you that they are happy to be on band A if they would get the value, which is the 20 hours in a day. But we still have challenges of issues coming up and the companies not compensating consumers as required. So those are the areas we are facing, to hold them to account, to say, okay, look, you are now charging higher to recover your cost. You must also ensure that consumers get value for their money. So the commitment they made, and which has been approved by their sector regulator, is what we're holding them to say, okay, look, 20 hours supply for band A, 16 hours for band B. And another thing too is, I had also touched that briefly when I spoke earlier, to say, let us not grumble so much without complaining. You will discover sometimes when we even go for our engagement with NEC and even the discos themselves, a lot of times, if you go ask them, they will tell you, okay, this estate, for instance, is actually on band A. But we haven't received any formal complaint from the estate as to the fact that this is the number of hours of electricity we are receiving. And our own organizational, operational workings of our organization is an evidence-based situation. Just like they have in the courts, I'm sorry to say, if we do not have evidence of a particular issue, we are not able to actually act on it. Yes, our law empowers us or mandates us to even act when we make discoveries by ourselves, and we do so. So we are proactive to that extent. But for the rest of the issues, consumers need to let us know. Don't think because, okay, you would say, yes, today they gave 18 hours, tomorrow they would give you 14 hours and all of that. And you begin to think, is this something can I get justice if I complain? I think that's where we want to be challenged. Complain to us and see whether we'll provide justice or not. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before I answer the last question, let me call on my learned brother, Instem, to answer the question, who has the power to prosecute? Okay, as head of legal services, Mr. Instem.
Thank you, EBC, for giving me the opportunity to express myself in this forum. Each time we introduce the EBC, we just forgot that he's a member of the bar. EBC is a member of the bar. And when he was giving his address, he cited various provisions of the law, the FCCPA. And Section 3, for me, provides the FCCPC as a corporate body who can be sued and can sue. Now, before the operationalization of the FCCPA,
Is that working? It's working.
You can project.
before the operationalization of the FCCPA in 2019, we had a Consumer Protection Act, which does not provide for the powers of the council as are then to prosecute for the council. But in FCCPA, we had section 20 sub 2 that had enabled legal officers of the commission to prosecute for the commission. Section 113 equally empowers the commission to refer some cases to the office of the Attorney General. As I speak with you, the Legal Services Department of the Commission has lived it to its bidding by prosecuting all undertakings that has contravened the provisions of the FCCPA. While the EBC was speaking, he mentioned the case of a complaint from a lady about Range Rover. And I could just say that that case was withdrawn by that undertaking because when the commission issued a compliance notice upon the investigation of the commission, the undertaking ran to the tribunal, which the FCCPA 2018 equally established. But upon doing that, the commission equally has power to prosecute criminally, because once it contravenes the provisions of the FCCPA, it becomes a criminal offense. We file a charge against that undertaking at the Federal High Court. And I can tell you confidently that no undertaking or CEO will want to be docked. So for the fear of being prosecuted, undertakings had relatively complied with the provisions of the FCCPA. And at the last count, we have over 25 cases that we have been able to prosecute given the infractions of the provisions of the FCCPA. I will equally want to say that the law provides that for any determination or decision reached by the commission, the first point of call is the tribunal, which was created by the FCCPA. So when there are issues or subject matters or cause of action that does not come from the determination or decision of the commission, the court of first instance is the Federal High Court. And that has to do with issues that is outside the provisions of the FCCPA. So When we take the cases we have in the tribunal and add to the ones we have at the Federal High Court, we have over 30. If you see why he was equally giving his address, mentioned the case of the Meta, that case is equally at the Court of Appeal. We have over 5 cases that undertakings at appeal, given the determination and decision of the tribunal. So the commission, in a nutshell, has ample powers to prosecute infractions or contraventions of the provisions of the FCCPA.
Thank you. On the last question, the airlines. You know, we came out with a report last week of, we investigated the airlines during Christmas period, because what they did was they colluded to fix prices at that time. So we have come out with preliminary reports. We are now on the issue of penalties. That issue of penalties, we are going to come out with that in our final reports. So some of the things we are also looking at is not. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. We are talking of the airlines. The airlines. Yes, you know, we investigated them following the complaints that they fixed prices during Christmas period. Prices ranging from the price of tickets, the airline tickets was around 145, 150,000 naira. Suddenly it became 405,000, from 405 to 600 and something thousand naira during Christmas period, and so we followed up through our investigation, and we were able to conclude that it was a kind of a price fixing mechanism for us. And the plan report is already, I've already found them wanting in that regard. So the final report is going to be issued very soon. And what we are also considering is to look at a situation where we have to ask them to refund the excess to the passengers, which we assume they exploited. So those are some of the things we are considering. So by the time we come out with our final reports, I'm sure it will be there. You will see. You get that from us. Wait for the reports. There are several. I don't want to mention airlines. There are many of them. At least I know about 5 or 6 who are involved. So, but I don't want to mention names for now.
Thank you very much, sir. I believe he has done justice. He asked your questions and he has answered, at least to the satisfaction of people watching. On this note, I would like to just hand over the microphone to the Special Advisor Information and Strategy to wrap it up for us. And thank our guests for coming.
Well, thank you very much. I want to say a big thank you to all the journalists here for attending this session. Let me also thank our guests, starting from the EVC, Barrister Tunji Bello, and the Executive Director, the Executive Commissioner of Operations, Mr. Luis Odion. No, we are all journalists here. And then Mr. Ijagu, Director of Corporate Affairs, thank you for coming. And the barrister, Insitem Shizene, thank you. Mrs. Seme Ayo, David Ojugo, okay, that's the woman. Mrs. Nima Gambo, Deputy Director of Quality Assurance. Mr. Michael Oluwa Tikme, thank you for coming. Yamta Malgui, okay, that's it. David Omojola, and Lekon Ibrahim. Thank you very much. I must say that this interaction, we've long planned for it. But because of the busy schedule of the EVC, we kept postponing until we said, no, we must come this week. And I had the special interest where I said it must come. And you guys didn't ask that question. The fallout of Iran-Israeli war has affected all of us here in terms of the cost of fuel. Now, a few days ago, Dangote say has reduced the price. And in many of our stations, they are selling far, far above the gantry price that Gote gave. And I know that FCCPC can call the stations to order that they should comply with the base price and so on before they put their margin. But I think we are okay with whatever is going on in the market, so we didn't raise it. So,
what I can say is that we are monitoring it. It's not something we are monitoring it presently, and we want to consider it as a temporary or as an emergency measure for now. But we are monitoring it where we We are presently monitoring the situation now, this effect of the US-Israeli-Iran war. We are presently monitoring the situation, particularly as it affects prices in Nigeria and so on, various prices, because even it's not just petrol. Petrol has multiplier effects on some of even the things we eat or we take on a daily basis. So we are monitoring, and we still want to see it as a temporary measure. But you know, we have the federal government under the leadership of our president has recorded the massive gains in the last 2 years, and we don't want to see this as something that will now begin to now upset that process. So we are presently monitoring. So whatever the fuel suppliers, whatever they dictate and so on, and if the petrol stations too are not complying, and so on. Those are the things we are trying to monitor. If somebody has reduced 100 or 200 naira from it and so on, and you are still selling your own for 1,500 naira or per liter or 1,400 naira, we should be able to ask you, why are you doing that? And so on. So those are the things, our monitors are outside already, monitoring developments and so on. Until we get reports from them, that's when we can actually, and we are also working with DPR in that respect. So as time goes on, you will hear from us. Thank you.
Yeah, I've not finished talking. Well, I must say that from this our interaction, my own takeaway is a further education on the work of the FCCPC. That it is not involved in price control. It's there to protect us against price fixing, price manipulation, and transparency and all kinds of things. So let's remember that always. They are not doing price control. The other one is what the barrister emphasized, that please, when you have problems with any of your service provider, don't grumble in your sitting room. Complain by writing petitions and so on and so forth. Always complain. In fact, I've had Nigerians who say, oh, I don't want to go to court, the court will waste my time and things like that. Don't do that. If anybody is doing something that is, I don't know, trying to cheat you or something, make sure there are many channels where you can report to and get some remedy. So,
people have even gotten a lot of relief from us that you don't even get to hear about it on a daily basis. Even lawyers, even some lawyers, they even cases they have, they outsource it to us at times. If you have handled the court, they take it to us, and once it's sorted out within weeks or months, they collect the money out. So the lot of things are happening on a daily basis.
So thank you, gentlemen and ladies. I know very soon we'll invite Mr. Bello and team back here. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So let's have our photograph.